Welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you're returning to it. This is the fifth in a series of videos on Google Sheets and Google Apps Script. In this video, we are going to improve upon the script that we wrote in the last video. You may remember that we had started with a dog club spreadsheet master sheet, which has various details about dogs by name and includes whether the owner's status is paid or associate, and it includes the date of birth. Now we wanted to send to paid but not associated members congratulations and other paraphernalia on their dog's birthday. And so we created a sheet which is called Birthdays Linked Sheet, which is sorted on next birthday. So the next birthday is at the top, and it also has the days for the next birthday and today's date. Now I should say that originally this was going to be a shed club, not a dog club, but YouTube objected to my use of people's names, although they were all fake and all the data was fake. And so I have made it a dog club purely so that I can use dogs' names rather than people's names. If you're a member of a dog club and you think this is completely ludicrous, then I apologise for that. We really did send birthday cards to members of the shed club on their next birthday. So here then is the sheet sorted so that the next coming birthdays are at the top. In this particular case, today's date is the 23rd of August. The next birthday is Zulu's on the 5th of September, which is in 13 days' time, and later birthdays are further down the sheet. Now, there are a few things that I want to remind you about this spreadsheet or this particular worksheet. First of all, the next birthday is calculated according to a formula, and you can see the formula in the formula bar. The yellow arrows point to that formula. It's quite a complicated formula, which was explained in the second video in this series. Secondly, days to next birthday is also calculated according to a formula, a rather simpler formula, however, than the next birthday itself. And thirdly, for the first three columns, dog name, status, and date of birth, we populate the sheet by reference to the master sheet. So in this case, Tiger is linked to, or Tiger's status is linked to cell B10 in the master sheet. So we don't have associate in the bar here, we have the link to the master sheet. The point about this is that if the status later changes, for example, his owner becomes paid up member rather than an associate, and that's changed on the master sheet, it automatically changes in this sheet. Ideally, we want to be able to retain all of these things in the script that we write. There were some things, though, that this sheet would not do automatically. So, for example, though the number of days to next birthday would automatically adjust because of this formula, so if we came in tomorrow, for example, on the 24th, it would now be 21 days to the next birthday, and so on. Once we pass the 5th of September, the sheet would not resort, although Zulu should be at the bottom. The sheet could also not deal with adding new members or taking away members. It would not adjust for that. So in the last video, we wrote a script which essentially enabled us, when we ran the script, to recreate the entire birthdays sheet. It would delete the original sheet and recreate it from scratch. Now, the way in which it worked, we had a function which we'd called doItAll, and we had that calling various other functions, which first of all deleted the old sheet, then filled the first column, then filled the second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, and so on, and at the end of it all, sorted the birthdays so that the upcoming birthdays would be at the top. Let's remind ourselves what happened when we ran the original version of this program. When I run these scripts by way of demonstration, for example, we're just about to run the doItAll function, we start off by saving any changes that we might have made using this button here. We then make sure that we've got the right function, so we select doItAll over here. We then run the script by clicking on Run, and immediately we go back to the spreadsheet from the app script. We go back to the spreadsheet so that we can watch it running. Let's just run this. This is now the original version of this sheet. Now what I'm going to do is make sure first of all we're running doItAll, the entire program. I'm going to click on Run, and then very quickly I'm going to go over to the spreadsheet so we can watch it running. Okay, so that's the plan. So we'll click on Run, And now we'll go to the spreadsheet, we'll watch it run. It's deleted, it's beginning to fill up. It's filling up very slowly. Do notice that. That's something we want to talk about later. It's filling up these first three very slowly. But the next ones it fills up quite quickly. But notice it hasn't actually sorted. The days to next birthday remain exactly as before. It hasn't sorted any of the rows. Now, one of the things we might like to do is to see if there's any problem with the sort program. So instead of doing do it all, we'll just run sort, and we'll run it. And again, we'll go back to the sheet, and you can see now it sorts straight away. So what we found was that the sort function works when it's run on its own, but it doesn't run when it is run in the function of functions, which I thought was very interesting. What I concluded in the end was that the problem is that sort BDs, that's sorting on the next birthday column, ran immediately after filling the sixth column. But it actually takes Sheets a bit of time to fill this column, and so by the time sort BDs was called, there was nothing actually in it to sort on. I needed to find some way of delaying things. What I came up with was the idea of creating a seventh column. The seventh column, what I did to do this was to go through the sixth column and take it for each row, take the value out, put it into the same row in the seventh column, going all the way down, row by row, doing that, so that in the end we had a seventh column, the values for which were exactly the same as the sixth column, but it had taken a little bit of time to create that seventh column. This gave sort BD something to sort on. I now sorted on the seventh column, not the sixth. Having sorted on the seventh column, there was no need for the seventh column anymore, and so I deleted it. Anyway, let's see how that works. That's what we're going to do now. Okay, so you can now see that we have changed the sort function so that it does what I've said it did, and we're going to run the whole thing again, the whole do it all again. As before, I'm going to press run to set it running, and then very quickly we're going to go over to the spreadsheet tab to watch it running. So here we go, we'll press run, and we'll go and watch it running. So it does this before. It's very slow to start with, as it was before. This isn't very interesting, is it? Let's go to the end quite quickly. Okay, it's now created the seventh column, and it is creating it, and it sorts immediately and deletes the seventh column immediately. So we have got a working program at this stage. One thing to notice about this is that because we had a formula in column 6 or column F right from the start, and because we haven't altered column 6 in any way, remember we created a new column 7 to sort on and then deleted it, but we didn't change column 6. And therefore column 6 still just contains formulae, such as this one here, and that means that if we come into the sheet to say tomorrow, the days to next birthday will automatically have adjusted. However, I have to say I wasn't terribly happy about creating a new column purely to sort on it and then deleting it. And that got me to wondering, why do we need the seventh column? Why don't we just take each of the values from column 6 and put it back into column 6? And by the time we've gone through that process, maybe there'll be enough time that the column will have something to sort on. We don't need to create the column 7. So that's what we tried to do next. This time then, we're simply going to fill the sixth column itself to make sure that there are values in. We're not going to create the seventh column. We've altered this function to do that. And again, we're going to run it. And exactly the same as before, we'll press run here, then we'll quickly go over to the Dog Club spreadsheet and watch it run. So click on run, go to the Dog Club spreadsheet. Here it goes, it's deleting, it's coming through again. We'll skip this bit and go straight to the end. Okay, now this isn't very interesting because it's just putting the original values back, so you're not really seeing anything until it sorts everything. And you can see that it works. But there is something else that I want to show you, which is this. That this 73 is now 73. It's not a formula anymore. For each of the rows in column 6, we've evaluated the formula and we've put back the value. So whereas before we had a formula in column 6, we now have a value in column 6. And so, for example, Apollo has 73 days to the birthday. That is no longer calculated according to a formula with today's date in it. It is simply 73, and you can see that it's completely different. When we come in tomorrow, it's going to be 73 tomorrow as well, though of course ideally it should be 72. So this is not quite the same as what we did before. It's not as good as what we did before. We haven't really improved upon using the 7th row and sorting on that and then deleting it. Anyway, I got to wondering about this. The first 3 columns, as we saw a minute or so ago, actually fill really slowly. But the question is, do we need to do them first? Do we need to have all those columns filled in before we create column 6 and sort on it. Maybe we could create column 6, then do at least one of those slow columns later, and then sort on column 6. Perhaps then, by then, there would have been enough time for Sheets to populate column 6 properly and for the sort to work. So it occurred to me to think, what information does column 6 need in order to fill? Well, you may remember that it's based on a formula. And here it is. It's based on a formula which is taken from cells in the column E, the fifth column. So we're going to need the fifth column before we can create the sixth column. If we then have a quick look at what's in the fifth column, that's also using a formula, a much more complicated formula, which, as I say, is explained in the second video of this series. But the only cell referred to in this formula is actually in column 3, the date of birth column. So we need column 3 to create column 5. We need column 5 to create column 6. But we don't need columns A, B or D, columns 1, 2 or 4, to create any of these columns, C, E or F. So why don't we change the order that we do things? Why don't we create C, E, F, then A, B, D, then sort? Maybe that will give us enough time, give Sheets enough time to fill column F properly and allow the sort to work. So let's see what happens when we do that. So here's what we do. We're going to go back to the original sort without all the faff of creating the 7th column. So it's just a straightforward sort on column 6 in sort BD. So go back to the original sort BDs. But we rewrite do it all and we simply change the order in which we do things. So as before, we're going to start with the initial delete. But then we're going to fill the 3rd, 5th and 6th columns, and then 1st, 2nd and 4th. And only then are we going to sort. And we're hoping that by the time we get to the sort, Sheets will have had sufficient time, while waiting for the 1st, 2nd and 4th to fill, to populate column 6 with some data upon which it can sort. So here we are again. We've gone back to the original sort function, and we've revised do it all in the way that I've described, so we've altered the order in which we do things. We'll run it again exactly as before. We'll press run and then we'll go straight over to this tab to watch it running. So we press run to get it to run and we go back to the spreadsheet to watch it run. And it's already filling in the 3rd column. As you can see, it will now fill in the 5th and 6th because we need that information. But now it's waiting to fill in the 1st and 2nd, and it's filled in the 1st and 2nd, filled in today, and only then does it sort, and now it's had time to populate this column, and so it's sorted properly. So we've now managed to sort properly without needing the 7th column, and notice that we have a formula in here rather than just the value itself. So this will now adjust automatically as the days move. Is it really all roses in the garden though? I've commented already today on the fact that the first 3 columns, dog name, status and date of birth, fill really slowly. And the reason for this is that each time we go to the master sheet, we pick up an item of data, we copy it to the birthday sheet. We go back to the master sheet, do the same again, back to the birthday sheet. So we're going to and from these spreadsheets, reading and writing, many, many times. And remember, this is only 20-odd rows. If we had 1,000 rows, it would take ages and ages. I really do think we need to think about doing something about that, making it run a bit faster. And that's not the only problem. You may remember that in the original sheet, before we'd run the script, all of the contents of the first 3 columns referred back to the master sheet. They weren't just written in, they referred back, so that if they were changed in the master sheet, the change would be automatically reflected here in the birthday sheet. So Tiger's associate status, for example, if his master paid and that were changed in the master sheet, it would automatically be reflected here. However, now that we've run the program and recreated this script, we'll go down to Apollo this time. Apollo's owner has paid, but it just says paid. And this is because of the way that we have created those first 3 columns. We've simply taken the values from the master sheet and pasted them in here. So they no longer refer to the master sheet, and they'll no longer automatically update if the master sheet updates. Now you may say, well, that doesn't matter very much, does it? Because we can always run this program anyway, whenever we do make a change to the master sheet. I still think it would be better if these things happened automatically though, and we reduce the need for running this program each time. And there's another problem, I think. You see, when we want to run these scripts, we have to go into the script tab, we have to select the function, and we have to click on Run. That's fine for programmers. I'm not sure that it's fine for the general user. We really want some kind of menu that you can use. Or maybe it should run automatically whenever the spreadsheet opens. Personally, I don't favour the second idea. I think it removes too much control, but I can see that it can be attractive. But let's at any rate consider all the possibilities that we've just thought of. We'll consider making everything run faster. We'll consider linking the data to the master sheet, and we'll consider a menu or possibly automation of running the process. Let's begin then by addressing the speed problem. Now I'm going to make some changes. I'm going to change the fill second col function. And when we do this and we demonstrate, I don't want to run everything again, so I'm not going to run do it all again. I'm going to run a function that I call do a bit. So it's only just a little bit of it. We don't want to spend ages on this. It will delete the current birthdays worksheet. It will fill the first column. Now this will be unchanged, so you can see how slowly it runs now. It'll then fill the second column, and you'll be able to compare how the second column fills in comparison with the first. So we're going to revise the filling of the second column. Now the problem at the moment is that, as I say, it's very slow, and that's because of the way this for loop runs. I explained this, by the way, in the last video, how this runs. Now what we do is we go down in the master sheet each row from 2, or plus 1, to the last row, because it goes down to 1 below this figure here. And we get the value in that cell, just the value in that one cell. We then go to the birthday sheet, the relevant row in the birthday sheets, and also in column 2, and we set the value. So we just get one value from the master sheet, put one value into the birthday sheet. We then go down one more row, get another value, just one value from the master sheet, put it into the birthday sheet. So as you can see, we're constantly moving from the master sheet to the birthday sheet, to the master sheet, to the master sheet to the birthday sheet, and so on. And that's why this filling of the second column is running so slowly. There is, however, a quicker way to do it than the for loop. Now what we'll do again, we'll go to the master sheet, we'll set the number of rows, we'll find the last row of the master sheet. This time we take one off because we're starting at row 2 in the master sheet. And what we're going to do here is, instead of the for loop, we're going to get a range which is not just one value but a whole range of values. And we're going to set the current, which is our current variable that we're using, to MS sheet get range, same as before. This is row 2 to here, column 2, row 2. And the reason is that we don't want row 1 because we're starting at row 2. If you remember, the master sheet has a title for the top row. Then we have MS last row, number of rows. That's why I took one off, because we're starting at 2. And we don't get value, we get values. So we get all the values and put them into the current variable. Then we go to the birthday sheet, we get the range. This time we go to row 1 in column 2 because we're starting at the top. Again, we're going to go, that's the number of rows we want, and this time we set not value, we set values. And we put that current variable into it. So what we're doing now, rather than getting each value one at a time, is we're getting all the values from the master sheet, putting them all into the birthday sheet. And this should work a lot faster. Okay, let's see it running. This is our dog club for YouTube. That's the master sheet. As you can see, the top row is just a title, which is why we start at row 2 when we're taking the values for the second column. Right, we'll go to the birthdays sheet because that's the one that we're going to demonstrate changes to. Now we'll look at the app script sheet, and we're going to make some changes to the app script sheet. First of all, we're going to go to my working file. We're going to add a function, do a bit. This function is not already in the app script, so we'll add it here because that's the one that we're going to run. We're just going to initial delete, fill first and fill second. We're not going to run everything. Fill first col is unamended. We're not going to change that from before, so it will be slow. Fill second col, on the other hand, is the amended one that we've just done, and we hope that that will operate quite a lot faster. So we'll go back to here. Here's our new fill second col that we've just demonstrated or shown you what to do in the last few minutes. We'll go back to here again. We'll leave fill first col exactly as it was. That's the slow one, remember? And That's the old fill second call, and we're going to replace it. So we'll do a Control V and replace it. Now all we need to do now is to save things, and we'll get on with doing some running. Right, we've saved it. We'll make sure that we're running the right function, which is do a bit, not do it all. We will then click on Run to run it, and we'll go to the Dog Club birthday sheet and watch it run. First column filling very slowly. That's the one that we haven't amended, remember, and goes slowly, but the second column absolutely quickly. So we've definitely cured the speed problem by doing it this way. However, we haven't cured the other problem, because, for example, Tiger as associate member here is associate up here as well. There's no formula in here or no link to the master sheet, and we really would prefer this to be linked to the master sheet. So I think we're going to have to get our thinking caps on again and do a little bit more to this. But in principle, at least, we have solved the speed problem. The way in which we link to the master sheet, you may remember, we've done this before, is to have equals master exclamation mark and then the cell in the master sheet to which we intend to link. Now in this particular case, this is actually the sorted sheet, and Tiger links to B10 of the master sheet. If this were unsorted, then this would link to master B1, this would link to master B2, this would link to master B3, and so on. So in other words, you're not linking to the same cell each time, you're linking to a different cell in master, but in the same column as you go down the column here. Now we have actually seen something a bit like this before. So for example, if we look at the column F, the sixth column of the sorted birthdays doc sheet, and we've got this cell here, the formula is equals E3 minus today. If we were to go up a cell, it would be equals E2 minus today. If we were to go down a cell, it would be equals E4 minus today. So we can use precisely the same techniques as we did in this column here, which I explained last time, to fill out the to link to the master sheet in columns 1, 2, and 3. So the top row of the second column of the birthday sheet will link to master exclamation mark B2. It's B2 because remember we don't take across the first row of the master sheet since that's merely the title. The next row down links to B3, the next row down to B4, and so on. But in the sixth column, as we've seen before, the first row of the birthday sheet links to E2 minus today. The second is, the formula is E3 minus today, and the third is E4 minus today. Now when we did the sixth column, and as this is explained in the last video, this was how we did it. We created a variable called cell content, which we use. It doesn't matter what the variable's called. And we go like this. So we have a string, which is the equals E, going up to, for example, there. This is the row. So we then say plus R, that's the 4, and then the rest of the string, which is the minus today part. So we can put together string, row, and the rest of the string. With the second column, it's actually rather easier than this, because if you can see, there's no further string after the row, so we just need the string followed by the row. So we can have something like this: let content equals master, this is the string, equals master exclamation mark B plus the row, and we can plug that into the first, second, and third columns. We'll now go and plug it into the second column. Let's plug this then back into the fill second col function. Now we've gone back to the for loop version of this function because we're cycling down the rows again as we were in this for loop. But we don't need to do quite the same as we did before. We don't need to get the value from master sheet and put that value into the birthday sheet each time. What we put into we don't need to go to the master sheet at all actually. We simply alter the value of the birthday sheet by putting this into the formula up here. So let's get rid of that. And this line we don't need anymore. So we can replace it with that line. We have changed the value of the variable here from current to cell content. So we just need to do the same here. Copy that across to, we've just changed the value to cell content. So we'll copy cell content into there instead of current. We'll replace current with cell content. One other thing needs to be done. We're running this from row equals 1 in the birthday sheet to fill the content in, but actually we're reading from the next row of the master sheet, and therefore this isn't plus R, it's plus R plus 1. So we need to make sure that that's right. But for each row in the birthday sheet, we're actually reading from the next row in the master sheet. I think that should do it. So let's plug this into the app script and see how it runs. Very well then, we'll select our newly written function, fill second column. Go to updating the birthday sheet, and we'll get rid of the getRange version of fill second col that we ran last time, and we will replace it with the new version, and we will save. We're going to run do a bit, so we'll click on run, and then we'll go to the birthdays sheet to see what happens. It's running the first column very slowly, as you can see. Well, we expect that because it's the original version. And the second column runs absolutely perfectly. So I thought it probably would run more slowly than that, because it is actually looking at each row of the master sheet, but it's run almost as quickly as the other one. And I think this is probably the answer, because as you can see, it links to the master sheet. So if, for example, Tiger's status was changed to paid from associate there in the master sheet, then this would work here. So we've got a fast-moving program, and we've got it linked to the master sheet. I think that probably will do it. And what we need to do now is simply to run the whole thing, the whole do it all. I'll change the first and third columns as well, and see how that goes. Very well then. Now you can see that we have changed fill first column and fill third column, so that they're the same type, same format as fill second column. So here's the fill first column, which as you can see is now being linked into master column A. Fill second column you've already seen, and fill third column, same structure again, but here we're linking into the master column D, which is the date of birth column. That's all we've done. Everything else we've left the same. We have the original sort function without creating a seventh column, so we are now going to do it all. Not going to do a bit, we're going to run the whole thing, so we'll make sure that we are choosing do it all. It is already saved. We will check run, and we will go to the birthdays sheet and watch it running. Here it is, it's deleted already. It's created the various columns that we need, and one of the things, it was quick, wasn't it? You must admit it was quick. You'll find that all these columns are linked to the master, so that any changes on the master will automatically be reflected here. All of the columns are like that. You can also see that it is sorted. I was a little bit worried about the sort, because of course these columns now fill much faster than before, and I was worried that the delay would not be sufficient. It is sufficient. Now the only thing I would say about this is that we haven't fully tested it. I'd like to be absolutely certain before concluding that this sort will definitely work, but I think it will work. If it, for any reason, we found it didn't and we needed more time, then either I would go back to one of the old method for one of these columns, or more likely I'd go back to the old method for part of one of these columns to ensure that enough time had elapsed for the sort to operate. I would say that script works fast and that it works perfectly. But we're still not absolutely at a perfect situation yet, because we're still going into the app script and we're still selecting a function to run, and we're running it, which, as I said, is something that I think a programmer would have no problems with, but a general user might. Now, one possibility would be to have it run automatically every time the spreadsheet is opened. And you could achieve this by renaming the function. So if you call the function onOpen, notice the capitalization, notice the brackets. If we were to rename doitall onOpen, then it would run automatically at the start. We wouldn't have to do anything. Now, as I've said before, personally, I don't think I want to do that, because it relinquishes too much control to the computer. What I would like to do is to set up a menu along here, which will enable us to run the program whenever we want to, without having to go into app script. And I want the menu to come up automatically when the script starts. So this is the way we do that. We're going to have it come up automatically when the script starts. So we're going to call it onOpen. And we're going to use various aspects of the spread app getUE function. Now, what we've done here actually is, because we're going to do all of these things are part and parcel of the same add UI function, we can simply do it like this. We can do a full stop for the first one. We're going to create a menu. The menu is going to be called updating. We're then going to add one item to the menu. It's only going to be a one item menu, which is going to be called update the birthday sheet, and it will run the function do it all. Okay, that's what that all means. And then we're going to finally, having done that, we add it to the user interface, add to UI. Now these are all aspects of the same getUI function. And we can do it this way if we don't put the semicolon at the end of each line here, and we just put the dots in this fashion. So let's have a look at that and see how that runs. So here it will come out of Dog Club for YouTube, and we'll restart it. So here we go. This is Dog Club for YouTube. We're going to restart it. Okay, we haven't done anything, and you can see straight away that there is a menu item, a new menu item, updating. That's because we have used this onOpen function to create this updating menu. So that's happened automatically as soon as it opens. If we go into this updating menu, you will see that, as we suspect, there is one item in it called Update Birthday Sheet, and when we press on that or select that, it should do it all. We've just added it to the UI, that's the same thing. So okay, we go back here, we go to updating, we update the birthday sheet, and now we will go to birthdays linked and we will watch it updating. There we are, it's doing exactly as it did before. It's filled in everything, it's sorted, it's done it quickly, it's sorted, it's linked properly to the master sheet, as you can see, and everything is now running fine. So we don't need to go into AppScript anymore. We have an updating menu, and anytime we like, we can just update the birthday sheet, just like that, and there it goes, it's updating again. You don't need to be a programmer to do this, do you? This is fine for the general user. So I think we have now finished, and it is time to reflect upon some of the aspects of some of the things that we have done. Okay then, a few reflections. First of all, as mentioned in the last video and also at the start of this one, the sort function didn't originally work, but as far as I could see, the code was fine. I couldn't see any reason why it didn't work, and I wasn't able to find anything in the books or on the internet. We solved this essentially by thinking about it, and sometimes I think with programming or scripting, there is no alternative but simply to think about what the problem might be and think it through and resolve it, and that's what we did here. One would hope that there are not too many problems of this nature left where you have to think about it. It would be nice if you could look it up, but maybe I couldn't find what was there. But I don't think you could look this one up. Now, as far as the other things that we've done today are concerned, as far as the getValues as opposed to getValue, and also setValues as opposed to setValue, that I looked up. I also looked up how you do this, that is to say, selecting the linking to the master sheet. That's something that could easily be looked up. That's general information that is very well known, as indeed are all the other formulae that we use. The today date, which by the way we've moved on a couple of days since the beginning of the video, and the next birthday and so on. These are all formulae which are well known. Also well known is the onOpen function that will automatically run a function when you open it without having to do anything to it, and this method of creating a menu item. So those things are all things we had to look up. But the sorting aspect we had to think about, and we couldn't. There was nothing that I could look up that helped me to solve that problem. This video and the last have all involved really what are programmers' skills. People say scripting isn't the same as programming, but I would dispute that. I think what we've been doing today and what we did in the last video is essentially programming. And one of the questions might be, well, is there a way you can do this without programming? Could you, for example, create a macro which would do the same job without any knowledge of programming? Well, that's what we're going to look at in the next video. What we'll find is that you can do this with a macro, but that if you wanted to have the same functionality as this, you're not really saving a lot on programming ability. You might as well, I think, write a full app script as write the macro. But let's have a look at that in the next video and see what we think. In the video after that, I'm going to look in slightly more detail at how the selection of a range with values rather than a single value, in other words, get values and set values, what's actually happening here. We've touched on it today, but we didn't use it in the end, and I think I want to spend a little bit more time comparing that with the for loop that we originally started with. If you liked this video or found it useful and would like to see more videos of the same type, then please subscribe to the channel so that you can be informed of any future videos as they become available. Thank you very much for watching.